You're holding me back from my dreams. Real women lift their men up. That's what Jeremy said, right there over a plate of cold pasta in front of all his friends. I laughed at first, thinking it was another one of his dramatic monologues the kind actors slip into when they think life is their stage. But he didn't smile. His hand didn't reach for mine. His eyes were firm, self-righteous, lit with that kind of confidence that only comes from someone who thinks they're speaking the truth. And in that moment, something inside me went perfectly still. My name is Christy Madison. I'm 36. For the last 12 years, I've worked as a senior talent coordinator at Silverline Productions, a job that sounds glamorous until you've lived it long enough to know it's not. It's paperwork scheduling and making sure egos don't explode before the cameras start rolling. But I know people, the right people, directors, producers, casting heads, and most importantly, the assistants who actually make things happen. That's where the real power hides in the quiet corners of the industry. I'd met Jeremy 3 years ago at a wrap party for a series I helped coordinate. He was magnetic tall, with a voice that made you look up from your drink even when you didn't want to. He told me he was an actor newly arrived in Los Angeles, ready to take over the world. I told him I worked behind the scenes. He smiled like that was cute. 6 months later, we were living together in my apartment overlooking Laurel Canyon. Within a year, he had booked 2 national commercials, a recurring role on a streaming show, and started introducing himself at parties as one of the lucky ones who made it. He said it like luck was his middle name. What he didn't know, what I never told him, was that every step of his luck had my fingerprints on it. Every audition he got, I'd made a call first. Not to rig anything, but to make sure his name didn't end up buried under 1,000 other hopefuls. A quiet word here, you might want to take a look at this one there. His recurring role. The director owed me a favor for getting his niece an internship 2 summers ago. Jeremy thought the universe was finally recognizing his talent. I thought love meant helping someone shine, even if they never knew you were holding the light. The night everything cracked was supposed to be harmless. Dinner with his friends Bella, Connor, and Derek at an Italian place where everyone pretended to be broke artists, but ordered $19 cocktails. They were complaining about casting directors' gatekeepers, how it's impossible to break through. Jeremy leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine like he was born for the part. "You guys just need to work harder," he said. "I've been grinding for 3 years, and look where it's gotten me." Bella raised an eyebrow. "Must be nice. I've been in LA 6 years. That's what I'm saying." Jeremy continued, oblivious. "Maybe you're not putting yourself out there enough. It's not just talent, it's drive." Then he turned to me, smiling like he was making a cute joke. "Take Tess here. She's been in the same job for 5 years now. No offense, babe, but you could use a little more ambition." The table went quiet. I felt 4 pairs of eyes land on me like spotlights. I smiled, the kind of tight, polite smile you give when you're deciding whether to leave or burn the place down. Connor looked uncomfortable. Derek started fiddling with his napkin. But Jeremy kept going. "I mean, she's amazing, don't get me wrong. Supportive, grounded, but sometimes I feel like I'm dragging her energy. You know how they say, behind every great man is a great woman? I just wish my woman would step up and open some doors." I set down my fork gently. "Open doors." He shrugged, oblivious to the sting. "You've been in the business forever, right? You must know people. Real women lift their men up, push them forward. I'm trying to build something big here." Bella's eyes widened. "Wow, Jeremy." "It's fine," I interrupted softly. "He's just being honest." Jeremy grinned, relieved. "See? That's why I love her. She gets it. No drama. No drama." That's what he said right before I stopped breathing. Because that night, for the first time, I saw him clearly. Not as the man I'd built up in my head, but as what he really was. A boy standing on a pedestal I had carved for him, too blind to notice the cracks forming under his feet. In the car ride home, he kept talking. Something about how he was glad we're on the same page now, and how he just needed me to believe in his bigger vision. I watched the city lights blur past the window, thinking how strange it was, loving someone so deeply that you'd quietly given them everything they ever asked for, only for them to call you an anchor. When we pulled into the driveway, he turned to me. "You're quiet." "I'm just thinking." "About what?" "About how right you are," I said. My voice didn't even shake. "Maybe I have been holding you back." He smiled, missing the undertone completely. "Exactly. You get it now. Real partnership is about pushing each other to new heights." "Right," I said softly. "Let's see how high you can go." He leaned in and kissed me on the forehead. "That's my girl." But I wasn't his girl anymore. Not really. because somewhere between his arrogance and my silence, something fundamental shifted. He thought he'd finally motivated me to be more ambitious. He didn't realize I'd just decided to stop saving him. That night, while he showered, I opened my laptop. His headshots, demo reels, contact lists, all neatly organized in a folder labeled Jeremy Opportunities. Every email I'd ever sent on his behalf was still there, every favor, every quiet nudge. I hovered over the folder. The hum of the shower filled the apartment like static. Then I closed the laptop, smiled faintly, and whispered to no one in particular, "Let's see what happens when I do absolutely nothing." Outside, the city buzzed like an electric heartbeat. Inside, for the first time in months, my chest felt light. He wanted a woman who would lift him higher. He was about to learn what it feels like when she stops. The first week after that dinner, nothing changed. At least not for Jeremy. He still woke up late, brewed his overpriced coffee, and complained about his creative burnout. He still stood in front of the mirror, rehearsing lines for roles I'd quietly arranged weeks before. He still called me babe when he needed reassurance and Christy when he wanted to sound serious. But for me, everything had changed. It was subtle at first. I didn't make the calls I used to, didn't text casting assistants or producers, didn't send his headshot to anyone I owed favors to. For the first time in 3 years, I let his emails sit at the bottom of submission piles, untouched, unseen, unprioritized. The silence that followed was almost therapeutic, like taking my hands off the strings of a puppet and watching what it does when left alone. He landed 2 auditions that week. Both were ones I had secured before the dinner, through old nudges I'd already set in motion. He nailed them, of course. He came home glowing, talking about how he was finally in alignment with the universe. "See," he said, dropping his bag on the couch. "This is what happens when energy flows right. You believed in me tonight, didn't you?" I looked up from my laptop, half smiling. Something like that. He grinned, kissed the top of my head, and went to open a bottle of wine. While he celebrated, I quietly deleted the draft email I'd written earlier, a recommendation I'd planned to send for another audition. No one would ever see it now. That was the last time his phone buzzed with good news. By the second week, his energy changed. He started checking his phone compulsively, refreshing his inbox, like a gambler waiting for the winning number. When nothing came, he began pacing around the apartment, muttering about how the industry's dead this month. "Just a slow season," I offered, gently stirring my tea. He nodded, but his jaw tightened. "It's weird, though. Donna said she's been sending me out for everything. It's like I've been ghosted." "Maybe everyone's just catching their breath," I said. He didn't catch the edge in my tone. It was almost poetic, watching him lose the very thing he thought he built alone. The momentum faded like a song that suddenly runs out of lyrics. By the third week, the silence grew louder. 12 submissions, 0 callbacks. He sat at the kitchen table one morning, laptop open, eyes hollow. "I don't understand," he muttered. "I've done everything right. Updated my reel, new headshots, posted consistently, networked like crazy. It's like the doors just slammed shut." "Maybe they were never open," I said softly. He blinked. "What?" "Maybe you mistook someone holding the door for you as your own strength." He frowned, unsure if it was an insult or wisdom. "You sound cryptic." I smiled faintly. "Maybe I'm just realistic." He sighed and went back to scrolling, unaware that every casting notice he clicked had already been filtered by people who once listened when I whispered a name and now didn't hear a thing. That night, as he slept beside me, I lay awake listening to the rhythm of his breathing. For years, I had believed that love meant helping someone grow, even if it meant staying invisible. But invisibility has a cost. It eats away at you quietly until one day you look in the mirror and realize you've become the supporting character in your own life. I turned to face him. His arm was draped across his chest, mouth slightly open, face peaceful. The face of a man who still believed the world owed him something. He had no idea that his guardian angel had retired. By week 4, cracks began to show. He grew irritable, snapping at small things traffic my tone, the weather. He'd come home from failed meetings and ask, "Can you ask around your office? Maybe someone knows what's going on." I'd shrug. "I'm just a coordinator, remember? The assistants probably have better connections." He didn't even realize he'd thrown those same words at me weeks earlier. He just nodded absently and scrolled through his phone again. At breakfast one morning, he sighed loudly, waiting for me to ask what was wrong. I didn't. Finally, he said, "I just feel stuck, like something shifted." "It happens," I said, sipping my coffee. "Maybe the universe is testing you." He perked up. "You think so?" "Sure," I said. Maybe it wants to see how bad you want it. He smiled, thinking I was being supportive. I wasn't. I was being honest. By the end of the month, the silence wasn't just professional, it was emotional. Our conversations shrank to logistics, groceries, bills, laundry. He spent nights out networking, coming home reeking of cheap whiskey and desperation. I stopped waiting up. One Friday night, around midnight, he stumbled in from another actor mixer. I was on the couch, half asleep, a candle burning low on the table. How was it, I asked. He dropped his jacket. Pointless. Everyone's just out for themselves. Shocking, I said dryly. He ignored the sarcasm. Some casting guy said he recognized me but couldn't place where from. Probably remembered me from the show. Probably, I said, knowing it wasn't true. That man remembered him because I'd shown him Jeremy's headshot a year ago. He just didn't remember why anymore. Jeremy slumped into the armchair, rubbing his temples. You ever feel like the whole city's conspiring against you? All the time, I said, my eyes on the candle flame. That's why I stopped chasing it. He looked at me like I'd spoken another language. I guess in his world, surrender and self-respect were the same thing. A few days later, I walked past his open laptop. On the screen, his credit card statement. Maxed out. Next to it, a tab open to an acting workshop costing $800 guaranteed networking access. He saw me looking. It's an investment, he said defensively. I'm sure it is, I said, closing the laptop. Just make sure you're investing in yourself, not your denial. He glared. You think I'm failing, don't you? I hesitated, then said, I think you're finally doing it alone. That shut him up. He stormed out for a walk, leaving the door half open. The night breeze slipped through, carrying the faint sounds of traffic and a siren in the distance. I stood there staring at the empty doorway and whispered to myself, Welcome to the real world, Jeremy. That weekend, I met an old producer friend, Mara, for brunch. She asked casually, Hey, that guy you were dating, what's he up to now? He's gone quiet. I smiled. He's finding his own path. Mara laughed softly. Well, without you making calls, he'll find out quick how brutal this town really is. Maybe that's the lesson he needs, I said. Mara studied me for a long moment. You're not helping him anymore, are you? I shook my head. No, I stopped. Her expression softened. Good. Let him earn his bruises. You've carried enough. That night, Jeremy came home pale, holding a letter from his agent. She dropped me, he said quietly. Said I'm not booking enough to justify her time. I nodded slowly. That must hurt. It's unfair, he snapped. I've worked my ass off. These people are all politics. The industry's political, yes, I said, standing. But maybe it's not just that. He frowned. What's that supposed to mean? I looked at him for a long moment, then said gently, Maybe for the first time, you're seeing what the industry looks like when no one's clearing the path for you. He stared at me, confusion and pride warring on his face. And I smiled, small, controlled, unshakable. Because for the first time, I didn't feel invisible. Jeremy always looked best under soft light, morning light, golden and forgiving. But lately, even that light betrayed him. It showed the exhaustion beneath his eyes, the bruised confidence, the slight twitch of someone losing control of a story they once believed they were writing. By the second month, the apartment had gone quiet. No more scripts scattered on the table. No more victory toasts with cheap Prosecco. Just silence, heavy and cold, stretching between us like glass. He spent his days scrolling through casting websites, clicking refresh like prayer. Sometimes I'd watch him from the hallway, how his shoulders stiffened with every new rejection, how his lips pressed into a thin line when the screen stayed empty. He didn't notice me watching anymore. He didn't notice much of anything. Then came the moment that broke the surface. He slammed his laptop shut and said, I don't get it. Bella just booked a campaign. Connor's got a new pilot. I'm the one putting in the hours. Why isn't it happening? Maybe they're better connected, I said softly, rinsing my coffee mug. Better connected, he repeated, scoffing. Please. Bella's talentless. She just gets lucky. Maybe she's grateful, I said. That's luck's favorite emotion. He didn't understand. He rarely did. The truth was, Jeremy had always believed that success was his birthright, that the universe was a mirror reflecting his effort. But what happens when the mirror cracks? He started talking less about opportunities and more about conspiracies. Maybe my agent blacklisted me before she dropped me, he muttered one night. Maybe someone's bad-mouthing me. Who would do that, I asked. I don't know, he said. People get jealous of what I wanted to ask, but I didn't, because I already knew the answer of nothing. Bills started stacking up on the counter. He used to toss them my way with a lazy grin. You're better with numbers. Now he stared at them in disbelief, realizing for the first time how much I'd been covering. Why is the internet bill so high, he asked. The faster upload speed, you said, it helped your auditions. You've been paying for that. I looked at him evenly. Real women support their men's dreams, right? He didn't reply. His silence was the most satisfying thing I'd heard in weeks. That night, he didn't come home until 2 a.m. When he did, he smelled of gin and bitterness. Networking event, he said, slumping onto the couch. Total waste of time. Everyone's just fake. Maybe you were just in the wrong crowd. No, it's this town, he said, rubbing his face. It's all who you know. That's true, I said, standing by the kitchen doorway. It's always who you know. He looked up sharply, trying to read my tone, but I'd mastered the art of neutrality long before I met him. By month 3, the cracks weren't just emotional, they were physical. He'd lost weight. The apartment was a mess. Audition reminders cluttered the fridge, crossed out one by one like failed promises. And still he couldn't see that the problem wasn't the universe. It was his blindness. One afternoon, I found him sitting on the floor, staring at his old demo reel, playing on loop. His voice on the recording was confident, charming, full of possibility. What happened to me, he whispered. I leaned against the doorway. Maybe you stopped listening. To who? To the people who helped you when you didn't even know it. He turned to look at me, eyes narrow. You mean you? I shrugged. I mean anyone. But he knew. Somewhere deep down he knew. He started calling old contacts, trying to rebuild bridges he'd never actually built himself. I'd hear the same conversations through the wall. Hey man, long time. Just wondering if you've got anything coming up. The polite pauses, the excuses. We'll keep you in mind. Great to hear from you. All code for no one remembers you anymore. Every night, he came home more defeated than the last. I watched him quietly, the way a doctor watches a patient refuse medicine. There was pity, yes, but also a dark, heavy satisfaction, the kind that comes from finally watching consequences do their work. One Sunday, he came home early from another casting workshop, eyes red. Do you know what that casting director said to me? He asked, voice trembling. What? He said my face looked familiar, but he couldn't remember from where. Then he just moved on to the next guy. He let out a bitter laugh. Can you believe that? I could. Because that casting director, Ricardo, had once owed me a favor. The only reason Jeremy's face ever looked familiar was because I had put it there. I'm sorry, I said gently, though I wasn't. Maybe it's time to take a break. A break? He looked horrified. You think I'm a quitter? I think you're tired. He shook his head, almost panicked. No, I can't stop now. If I stop, I'll disappear. I wanted to tell him that he already had. The nights grew colder. He started sleeping on the couch, sometimes claiming he needed space to think. I didn't argue. The bed felt lighter without his anxiety beside me. Occasionally, I'd hear him talking to himself lines from old scripts, affirmations, half-broken prayers. He was auditioning for ghosts now. One night, he burst into the kitchen holding a printout. Look, he said, eyes wild. There's a new role perfect for me. I'll nail this one. That's great, I said. Do you need help preparing? He hesitated. No, I've got it. I don't want your sympathy. Good, I said, sipping my tea. Because you don't have it. He froze, stunned by my calmness. I walked past him, brushing his shoulder gently. Good luck tomorrow. He didn't go to the audition. By the end of that week, Jeremy stopped pretending. The charm was gone, replaced by exhaustion and blame. This industry's rigged, he spat one night. You need money, connections, favors. None of it's about talent. I looked at him steadily. You're right. He blinked. What? You're right, I repeated. It's all about who you know. He frowned. You say that like it means something. It does, I said quietly. You just never asked who I knew. He stared at me for a long time, but I didn't elaborate. I just walked past him, turned off the living room light, and left him sitting there in the dark, surrounded by the ghosts of his own entitlement. A few nights later, Bella called me. I ran into Jeremy at a mixer, she said softly. He looked rough. What happened? He's just figuring out what kind of actor he is without shortcuts. There was a pause. You mean? I mean, he's learning the difference between help and dependency. Bella exhaled slowly. You always were the quiet one, Tess. But I think you're the one everyone should have paid attention to. After we hung up, I stood at the window, looking down at the city glittering below. It was beautiful, cruel, yes, but beautiful. 1,000 lights flickering in the dark, each one trying to be seen. Jeremy's light had gone out. Mine had just started to burn. It started with whispers. Nothing direct, nothing obvious, just faint echoes of my name floating through rooms I wasn't supposed to be in. At first it was harmless. A text from an assistant. Hey, Christy, heard you're taking a break from mentoring actors these days. Everything okay? I stared at the message for a long moment before replying. Everything's perfect. Because it was. For the first time in years, I wasn't fixing, smoothing, arranging, or rescuing. I was just existing. And the world, it seemed, was starting to notice the silence where I used to hum. Jeremy, of course, had no idea that people were still talking about me. He only heard the silence around him. The auditions had stopped. The callbacks, too. Even the friendly, "we'll keep you in mind" emails vanished like smoke, and the more invisible he became, the louder he got at home. One evening, he slammed the fridge door shut and said, "I don't get it. Everyone I know is working. Everyone but me." "Maybe it's just not your time," I said. He scoffed. "That's easy for you to say. You've got a stable job. You don't know what it's like to have everything dry up overnight." I tilted my head, studying him. "Don't I?" He didn't catch the tone. He never did. The next day, I ran into Ricardo, a casting director, in the lobby of the production office. He greeted me with that familiar, guilty smile that said he owed me a favor. "Christy." "It's been too long," he said. "Hey, whatever happened to that guy you used to help, the one with the strong jawline?" "Jeremy," but I asked. "Yeah, that's him. He stopped popping up. Thought he'd made it big." I smiled faintly. Something like that. Ricardo laughed awkward. "You always had an eye for talent. You should consider official talent management one day. You've practically built half this town's mid-tier actors." "Maybe I have," I said softly, "but not everyone appreciates the construction." He frowned, unsure what I meant, and hurried off to a meeting. That night, Jeremy came home from another networking mixer, which was code for nursing his insecurities with cheap drinks and false hope. He threw his jacket onto the couch and muttered, "I ran into a casting guy, Ricardo something. He said he recognized me, but couldn't place where from." "What the hell does that mean?" I looked up from my book. "It means you made an impression once." Once his voice cracked. "You say that like it's over." "Maybe it is," I said simply. He glared. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" I closed the book, calm. Enjoying what? Watching me fail. I stood walking to the kitchen to pour a glass of water. "No, Jeremy. I'm watching you live." He blinked, thrown off. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," I said, setting the glass down, "you're finally seeing what the rest of us have always seen, that this industry doesn't owe you anything." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. For the first time in a long while, he had no clever response. The next week at an industry brunch, I heard my name again, this time from Donna Jeremy's former agent. She smiled when she saw me, her lipstick perfectly cruel. "Miss Madison," she said warmly, "I owe you about 12 careers." I laughed. "Please, you owe me 3 at most." "Well, those 3 paid my rent for a year," she said. "You still quietly saving people from the slush piles." I stirred my coffee. "Not anymore." She raised an eyebrow. "No protégés. Not even that handsome actor you were with." I met her gaze evenly. "He's learning how to swim." Donna smirked, clearly amused. "Ah, you stopped being his lifeguard." "You can't save someone who insists they're drowning on purpose," I said. "It ruins the metaphor." She chuckled, but there was something knowing in her eyes. "When he finds out the truth, he'll either hate you or worship you." I smiled faintly. Either way, he'll finally see me. When I got home that evening, Jeremy was sitting on the floor, surrounded by bills and audition flyers. The air smelled of stale coffee and panic. "Donna called me today," he said without looking up. "Oh," I said, hanging my coat. "What did she want?" "She just asked how I was doing. It was weird, like she already knew." "People talk," I said, "especially in this business." He looked up at me, then eyes bloodshot. "Christy, be honest. Do people not like me?" I hesitated. "That depends." "On what?" "On whether they ever knew you," I said softly, "or just knew someone was making sure you looked good." He frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said, walking past him, "some people only shine because someone else polished the glass." He turned to follow me, confusion deepening. "You're speaking in riddles again." "Maybe," I said, "or maybe you're just starting to hear the truth." Over the next few weeks, the rumors multiplied. Someone at a casting office mentioned, "Christy's not endorsing anyone right now. We should hold off until she's back in the loop." Someone else said, "If Christy's not recommending him, maybe he's not worth seeing." Word travels fast in this town, but silence travels faster, and mine was echoing. Jeremy felt it before he ever understood it. He'd send in headshots and get radio silence. He'd walk into rooms and see people glance at each other like they knew something he didn't. The same people who once smiled politely now looked right past him. He started asking questions. To friends, to former coworkers, to anyone who'd pick up the phone. And every time the conversations ended the same way, with a polite pause and an awkward goodbye. One night, he finally asked me the question that had been clawing at him. "Be honest," he said quietly. "Did you ever help me before?" I looked up from my desk, pretending to think. Define help. "You know what I mean," he said, voice shaking. "Did you pull strings, make calls, get me auditions?" I let the silence stretch before I said, "Would it change anything if I did?" He swallowed hard. "I just need to know." I closed my laptop slowly. If I told you, yes, would you thank me or hate me? He froze. That's what I thought, I said, and walked away. That night, I dreamed of him standing in a bright room surrounded by closed doors. Each door had a name on it, directors, producers, casting agents' names I'd whispered over the years. He knocked on every door, and no one answered, because the key had always been in my pocket, and he never once thought to ask for it. When I woke up, the apartment was dark and empty. Jeremy had gone out again. His jacket was missing, his wallet gone, and a note sat on the counter. Don't wait up, I have to fix this. I smiled faintly and whispered to the silence, good luck fixing something you never built. Outside, the city lights blinked like judgmental eyes. And somewhere out there, I knew he was finally learning the hardest truth of all, that sometimes the universe isn't against you, it's just indifferent. Especially when the person who once held your world together decides to stop spinning it. It happened on a Thursday, the kind of day that doesn't announce itself. Gray skies, weak sunlight, the air heavy with the promise of rain. Jeremy was in the living room, hunched over his phone, scrolling through audition posts like a man trying to find oxygen. I was in the kitchen making tea, pretending not to notice the tension radiating from his shoulders. Then his phone rang. He answered on speaker voice, cautious. Donna. I froze mid-pour. Her voice crisp and bright filled the apartment. Jeremy, hi. I just wanted to check in. I've been hearing things. He frowned. Things like what? Like you've been having a rough streak. Look, I didn't want to say this, but I feel partially responsible. Responsible, he repeated, glancing at me. You dropped me, remember? I did, she admitted. But not because you weren't talented. Because you stopped having someone in your corner. Jeremy's confusion deepened. What are you talking about? I'm talking about Christy, Donna said. You do realize who she is, right? Silence. Even the rain outside seemed to pause. Christy Madison isn't just a coordinator, Donna continued. She's the coordinator. The person who quietly decides which names get seen and which ones don't. Every major casting office in this city listens when she speaks. Jeremy's voice dropped. No, that can't be right. Sweetheart, your entire career was built on her credibility. Every audition, every callback, every lucky break, she made sure you were seen. She never took credit for any of it. I thought you knew. The kettle began to whistle. I turned it off before it screamed. Jeremy Donna's tone softened. I don't know what happened between you two, but I'll tell you this. Most actors would kill for someone like her in their corner. You might have just killed your own career by not realizing it. He didn't answer. The line went dead. When I turned, he was staring at me, pale, motionless eyes, wide like a child who just saw the monster under the bed was real. Is it true? He whispered. I leaned against the counter, calm. Does it matter? Answer me, he said, voice cracking. Is it true? Yes, I said simply. It's true. He staggered a step closer. You were helping me the whole time. Every step I said, every audition, every callback, every miracle, that was me. Why? His voice was small now. Why would you do all that and never tell me? Because I loved you, I said, and I wanted you to believe you were capable on your own. I thought protecting your ego would protect your heart. He looked broken, and when you stopped, I was just giving you what you said you wanted, I said softly. Freedom. He blinked. Freedom. You said I was holding you back, I reminded him, so I let go. He sat down heavily on the couch, running both hands through his hair. Jesus, Christy, I had no idea. I know. I said terrible things to you. You did. I called you unambitious. I said you were dragging me down. Yes, I said, nodding slowly. I remember. He looked up at me, then eyes wet. I didn't mean it. I was just angry, insecure. You have to understand. I do, I said, cutting him off gently. I understand perfectly. You wanted a woman who would lift you higher, even if it meant stepping on her shoulders to reach the stars. He swallowed hard. Please don't do this. Do what? This quiet, cruel thing. You're punishing me. No, I said, I'm teaching you. He stood pacing. You could have told me. You could have just said. Would it have changed anything, I asked. Yes, I would have respected you. I laughed a soft, tired sound. No, Jeremy. You only respect what you can see. And I was invisible to you. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. That's not true. Isn't it? I stepped closer. You stood in front of your friends and told them I was holding you back, that I lacked ambition, that I wasn't helping you open doors, all while I was the one unlocking every damn one behind the scenes. His lips trembled. Tess, please. No, I said, voice sharp now. You don't get to beg now. You don't get to cry about the consequences of words you were proud to say when they made you feel bigger. He sank to the couch again, shoulders shaking. I'm sorry. Are you? I whispered. Or are you just afraid of what it means now that the truth is out? He didn't answer. Minutes passed. The only sound was rain tapping against the windows. Finally, he said, "Can you help me again?" "Just once. One audition. I'll do anything. I'll tell everyone how amazing you are." I stared at him for a long moment, the same man who once said I had no influence, no drive, no purpose beyond loving him. And now here he was, small and trembling, begging the woman he once dismissed to save him from himself. "You'll do anything I asked?" "Yes," he whispered. "Anything." "Then listen carefully," I said. "I'm not doing anything. Not one call, not one email, not one favor. You're going to walk into this industry and face it like everyone else alone." He looked up stunned. "You're just going to let me fail?" "I'm not letting you do anything," I said. "You're just experiencing the world without me smoothing the edges. This is what it's really like." He shook his head slowly. "You're cruel." "No," I said, stepping closer. "I'm honest. For the first time in 3 years, I'm not lying to make you feel like a man." He flinched. When I walked away, he called after me, voice raw, "Christy, please, don't do this. Don't leave me with nothing." I turned in the doorway. "Jeremy, I didn't leave you with nothing. I left you with yourself. That's just not as valuable as you thought it was." He stared at me, broken and speechless. Then very softly I said, "Now you know how it feels to be invisible." He didn't say another word that night. When I went to bed, he was still sitting there staring at the floor. The rain had stopped. The city outside was quiet. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, the faint hum of the fridge echoing through the silence. My chest ached, not with guilt, but with something deeper. Relief. Liberation. For 3 years, I'd built him like a house of glass, and all it took to bring it down was stepping back and letting him see how fragile he'd always been. He thought he'd been holding the spotlight. He never realized I was the one standing behind it, making sure it stayed on him. Now the light was gone, and so was I. Jeremy didn't leave right away. He lingered like a ghost who hadn't realized he'd already died. For 3 days, he wandered the apartment in silence. No auditions, no emails, no angry outbursts. Just silence. He'd sit on the edge of the couch with his head in his hands, whispering to himself things I couldn't quite hear. Maybe prayers, maybe regrets. I didn't ask. Some lessons are too sacred to interrupt. On the 4th day, he was gone. No goodbye, no note this time. Just an empty closet and the faint smell of his cologne on the pillow. His keys sat neatly on the counter, beside a half-drunk cup of coffee, still warm. He must have left minutes before I woke up. I stood there for a long while, staring at the empty space where his things used to be. The silence felt different now, cleaner somehow, lighter. Outside, the city was waking up. Somewhere a car alarm blared, a dog barked, someone was shouting for a taxi. Life unapologetically continuing. And for the first time in months, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. 3 weeks passed before I heard from him again. An email. Subject line, I get it now. I stared at it for a full minute before opening it. "Christy, I know you'll probably never read this, but I need to say it anyway. I get it now. I was blind, so obsessed with being seen that I never saw you. Every success I had was because of you. Every door that opened, every role I booked, it was you. And I made you feel small for it. You didn't just support my dreams. You were my dream. I thought I was building a career. You were building me. I don't deserve forgiveness, and I'm not asking for it. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I lost. It wasn't fame or opportunity. It was you." Jeremy. I read it twice, maybe 3 times. The words were honest, maybe even sincere. But they came too late, like an apology whispered to a tombstone. I didn't reply. In the months that followed, life moved quietly forward. The industry, as it always does, forgot its ghosts and found new ones. Jeremy's name faded from conversations, from audition lists, from memory. He was replaced by hungrier, younger faces, the next wave of dreamers ready to burn for their shot. I threw myself into work. Long hours, new projects, fresh faces, people who still believed in the magic of maybe. And for once, I chose carefully who I helped. One of them was Eli, a 27-year-old intern with soft eyes and a kind heart. He reminded me of Jeremy in all the ways that didn't hurt, earnest, hopeful, still unbroken by cynicism. He stayed late to learn, asked real questions, listened when I answered. One night, as we packed up after a long day, he said, "You know, you have this way of making people feel like they matter." I smiled faintly. Maybe that's because they do. He hesitated. "I don't want to overstep, but why do I feel like you've been doing this a long time, helping people shine, and never taking credit?" I laughed quietly. "Because I have." He nodded slowly. Then whoever you helped before was lucky. The words caught me off guard, simple, unpolished, true. I looked at him, really looked, and realized something. He wasn't flirting. He was just kind. No hidden agenda, no manipulation, just gratitude. That night, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, the city glittering below like spilled diamonds. For years, I'd lived my life behind other people's success, pulling strings, opening doors, making calls that changed everything for everyone except me. And for the first time, I didn't feel bitter about it, because now I knew where my power truly lived, not in their validation, but in my silence. Some people scream for recognition. Others build empires quietly, brick by invisible brick. I used to think invisibility was weakness. Now I see it's control. A few days later, I ran into Donna again at a charity gala. She hugged me like old friends do, perfume, sharp and familiar. Still saving careers, she teased. Not anymore, I said. Now I just choose who deserves to be seen. She smiled knowingly. You've changed. Maybe I just stopped confusing kindness with servitude. Donna nodded approvingly. Good. This business eats selflessness for breakfast. We laughed, but beneath it, I felt the quiet truth settle deep inside me. She was right. When I got home, I found another email waiting in my inbox from Bella. Subject line, Jeremy update. Hey, Tess. Just thought you should know Jeremy's back in Ohio, working at his parents' gym teaching acting classes to kids. He seems calmer, humble even. Said he finally understands why you did what you did. I think he misses you, though. B. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then quietly I typed 2 words. I hope so. And I meant it, because regret for people like Jeremy is the only real teacher left. That weekend, I invited Eli over to help review a demo reel submission from a new talent batch. We sat side by side on the couch, the screen glowing between us. Halfway through, he turned and said softly, "You make this look easy." "It's not," I said. "It just looks that way when you stop expecting gratitude." He smiled. "That sounds lonely." "Maybe," I said, glancing at the city lights. "But it's peaceful." Later that night, after he left, I walked through the apartment, my apartment now, and realized how much quieter it felt without resentment echoing through its walls. There was no trace of Jeremy anymore. No laughter, no arguments, no dreams I had to hold together. Just me, my teacup, my laptop, and the faint hum of the city outside. And it was enough. Sometimes I think about that dinner, the one that started it all. The clink of wine glasses, the soft murmur of voices, the moment he said, "Real women lift their men up." I smile now when I remember it. Because he was right, just not in the way he thought. Real women do lift men up. But the strongest ones know when to let go. It's strange how peace sneaks up on you. Not as a celebration, not with applause or flowers, but as quiet mornings where you realize you haven't thought about the person who hurt you in days. The ache doesn't leave with a bang. It dissolves grain by grain until one day it's just gone. For me, that day came on a Tuesday. I was sitting in a conference room, reviewing a new pilot script for casting. The air smelled like stale coffee and ambition, my natural habitat. Across the table sat the director, a kind, middle-aged man who'd worked with me for years. We were debating potential leads when he leaned back and said, "You know, Christy, I don't say this enough, but half this industry runs because of people like you." I smiled. Invisible people. He chuckled. Essential people. There's a difference. I didn't reply. But inside, something clicked, a quiet validation I didn't realize I'd been waiting for. Not from Jeremy, not from anyone else. Just from the universe acknowledging that quiet power matters too. Later that week, Eli stopped by my office. He'd just wrapped his first official casting assist, a small indie project, but he was glowing like he'd won an Oscar. "They loved my notes," he said, grinning. The director even said I had good instinct. "You do," I said, handing him a folder. "That's not something you can fake." He hesitated before taking it. "You really think I can make it in this business?" "I don't think," I said softly. "I know." He smiled shyly. "You sound like you believe in people too easily." "Not easily," I said. "Just precisely." He tilted his head. "Were you always like this?" I considered that. No. I learned the hard way that believing in the wrong person doesn't make you weak. It just teaches you to choose better next time. He nodded, thoughtful. Then, "Thank you for choosing me." For a moment, I saw the ghost of my old self, the Christy who once believed her worth was measured by someone else's success. And I realized she was finally gone. That night, I walked home instead of driving. The city felt alive again, not suffocating, not hostile, just honest. A place full of stories, each one fighting to be heard. As I crossed the street near sunset, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. Hi, Christy. It's Jeremy. I don't want anything. I just wanted to say thank you for everything. I finally got it. You weren't holding me back. You were holding me up, and I stopped walking. For a long moment, I just stood there staring at the words glowing on the screen. Not crying, not smiling, just breathing. Then slowly I typed one line back. You're welcome. Take care of yourself. I hit send and slipped the phone into my pocket. The streetlight turned green. I crossed. Months later, during a winter awards ceremony, I saw him again. He was there as a guest, not famous, not forgotten, just another name on a seat card. He caught my eye across the room. For a moment, the noise of the crowd faded. He looked different, humbler, grounded. There was no arrogance in his expression anymore, just quiet acknowledgement. He didn't come over. He didn't need to. A small nod passed between us. Not forgiveness, not regret, just recognition. And then the moment was over. Backstage after the ceremony, I found Eli waiting for me, grinning. I got accepted into the mentorship program, he said. They said my reference letter from you sealed it. Congratulations, I said warmly. You earned it. He looked at me curious. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you ever miss helping the wrong people? I thought about it, about all the years, the energy, the patience spent on someone who saw me as background noise, about the pain that came from realizing I'd built a castle for someone who never planned to let me live in it. Sometimes I admitted, but then I remember even the wrong people can teach you the right lessons. He smiled. You should put that on a mug. I laughed. Maybe I will. The next morning, sunlight poured through my apartment like liquid gold. I opened the balcony door, letting the air rush in cool, soft, alive. On the counter sat a small envelope. No sender's name, no logo, just a single line written in neat handwriting. For the one who helps others see themselves. Inside was a single photo, me and Eli at the office, laughing, unaware someone had taken it. No note, no explanation. Just a moment captured quietly. I placed it on the shelf beside my books, the spot where Jeremy's old framed headshot used to be. It felt symbolic, not a replacement, a restoration. Later that day, I met Mara, the producer, for coffee. We talked about new projects, the state of the industry, the usual gossip. Before we left, she asked, You ever think about stepping in front of the camera, telling your own story? I smiled. Maybe someday. You'd be good at it, she said. You've got that thing, calm fire. I raised an eyebrow. Calm fire, she nodded. The kind that doesn't burn down rooms, just changes the temperature. I like that. Maybe that's what I'd been all along, not a storm, not a savior, just a quiet flame in a noisy world. That night I sat by the window, city lights stretching endlessly below. The air smelled like rain and possibility. I thought about everything that had happened, the love, the betrayal, the silence, the letting go. For a long time I thought power meant being needed. Now I know it's about not needing permission to exist fully. Real women don't chase applause. They build stages where others can shine, and they don't mind standing just off to the side watching it happen. Real women don't prove their worth by saving broken men. They learn when to close the door, when to walk away, when to save themselves. And the realest women of all, they don't need to be seen to be unforgettable. I closed my eyes and whispered to the city. Real women lift men up, but real men never mistake that grace for weakness. Then I smiled, slow and peaceful, the way you do when you finally understand your own story. And somewhere in the distance, the world kept moving. Auditions being held, names being whispered, lights being lit. But this time, I wasn't the invisible hand behind it all. I was just Christy Madison, whole, quiet, seen.